Okay, I'm not sure what we're doing here, but I think we're having a little discussion with good friends Rich Frascone from Who's Telling the Truth, Dan Carter, who is the state representative from the 2nd Assembly District, which includes part of Bethel, part of Newtown, part of Reading, and part of Danbury.
That's correct.
Sort of whatever parts of those towns kind of come closest to each other. And co-host Emily Volpin-Testa. And I wanted to talk with Dan. Dan was on the show before, and he gave an explanation about his vote on the gun control bill, and he was brave to come on because it's a tough bill to say you voted against it. It's tough to say you voted against anything that's emotional like that. But I wanted to talk about campaign financing. And specifically, well, we could talk about Connecticut's campaign financing because Dan's a part of that. And most every legislator in the House and Senate gets their campaign financing through the state of Connecticut, and it gives them an amount of money that's enough to do some postcard mailings and maybe some TV or not some radio ads and things of that nature. But that's it. You can't spend any more money besides that. That's how much you can spend, and that's it. And it's financed by the state of Connecticut by taxpayers. But I also want to talk about campaign financing in relation to a group called ALEC, American Legislative Exchange Council. Rich has talked about them on his show in the context of the Koch brothers, because Koch brothers are
I've spoken about the Koch brothers. I've never spoken about ALEC.
They're fairly well known. They're our version of George Soros, because both sides have their guys they like to focus in on and say, well, those rats finance campaigns and do stuff. But the American Legislative Exchange Council meets with legislators in every state in America, gets together with them and helps them write laws that ALEC things should be passed within that state, within the state government. But all right, somebody say something.
So what's ALEC? I'll jump in and kind of start off because when I started out 4 years ago, one of the first things I was approached with was ALEC. Mm-hmm. And the concept of ALEC is that
hold on one second.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking.
Of course.
When you say how were you approached?
When I say approached, meaning there were other contemporaries, people in the legislature who said, "Oh, you should join this organization called ALEC." Basically, they come to you, just as kind of everybody joining it, and says it's a really great opportunity because what they do is it's private and government together working on model legislation, working on issues, and they have industry at the table and they have government at the table to talk about this stuff. Now that's what it was sold to for me. In fact, I joined my first 2 years. I think it's $100. My dues are $100 for the first 2 years to be part of ALEC. And one of the things that it also offers is there's a time where I can, and I believe at my own expense, I don't know how much that gets paid for by ALEC, I can travel to like I'll call it a convention, for lack of a better term, where they handle different topics. It can be anything from Common Core to how do you deal with solid waste? I mean, there's just a whole host of these issues. There are also different subcommittees like energy and things like that. That's what it is. Now, here's the criticism. Well, here's what the criticism of ALEC is. Okay, because I'll be honest, I don't really get that upset about what ALEC does, but I left ALEC because of the criticisms of it, because I didn't think it was something that I needed to be doing or that was actually even giving me anything extra. But the criticism is that it's because it's public, these business entities getting together with government, there's automatically this sense of like they're buying off people and it is a conservative organization.
Influencing votes.
Right, but it's not as much influencing votes as it's influencing legislation, because their businesses are coming and saying, hey, this is what we need to survive in this environment.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of the day, legislators have to look at that and say either it's good or it's bad. But see, the criticism again is because there's money or because they pay dues in this organization, then that's where you look at it, you go, maybe that's a little fishy, because you have like NCSL, which is a National Conference of Legislative. It's totally free. Totally free. And I get information from them all the time. I get a great magazine called Governing, and I'll read the stuff. I think it's Council of State Governments is another one. Council of State Governments has more of a reputation of being a little more liberal. But they also don't have the... I don't know how they're doing the money part of it, but they don't have businesses putting into the till to keep the organization running.
Right.
That's the problem. See, that's where you get into campaign finance too. ALEC isn't financing any campaigns,
right.
But because there's a connection anytime with money in government, that's suspect, and that's why I looked at it and said, I don't want to be there because I really believe that you shouldn't have like any connection with lobbying or PACs or. Anybody should be donating or giving money to any kind of campaign. It should come purely from individuals. Period. End of story.
So let me ask you this: when you joined ALEC, how much graft and corruption money did they give you?
Nothing. I mean, that's the thing.
They do have conventions. They take legislators to conventions, and I guess it's fair to say they wine and dine them to some degree.
I didn't go to any. That's the problem. I never went to any of the conventions. It just, frankly, too busy in my district. I've got to work. I've got 2 kids, more or less a single dad. I don't have time to do that. I wish I wanted to, because even though it was what it was, I'm sure I would have gotten some really good information too. Because at the end of the day, when you get information in politics, it's like lobbying. Like I'll tell people, I like lobbyists because if you think about it, they're most educated on that subject. The problem is you can never have money connected to anything.
Yeah.
And in Connecticut, where we're good, we don't have a mechanism for that. They can't give me money.
Now, what do you do?
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's be honest with each other.
I am 100% honest.
Okay, now, let's say...
we presume that on this show.
Let's say, and I'm sure we'll all agree at this table that global warming is a serious problem, and there's no doubt that it's happening. Am I correct?
I would call it climate change.
Okay, well...
And it is definitely an issue we got to contend with.
Well, when the globe warms, it causes the climate to change. So, but...
I want to jump in real quickly, because I watched a great show. If you've been watching Cosmos, the remake of Cosmos, and it's got... Neil deGrasse Tyson is on it, and he's fascinating. He takes apart a Carl Sagan. And he's very good at explaining things. And I had always, I had questions myself about the issue of carbon dioxide, CO2, because we know that's a natural process where we breathe out carbon dioxide, plants breathe in carbon dioxide, plants breathe out oxygen, we breathe, it's that cycle.
Recycle.
But he explained how, and he started off talking about Venus and showed Venus and what Venus is like, and noted that the level of carbon dioxide, number one, it's extremely high on Venus, so that it traps in all the sunlight, and the climate on Venus is such that it'll melt metal. Basically, it'll melt lead. It's pretty hot there. But the difference between Venus and Earth, in terms of carbon dioxide, is that Venus has all that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, whereas on Earth, all our carbon dioxide, which is essentially the same percentage of our planet is carbon dioxide as Venus, but it's all trapped in limestone and in water. Venus long ago lost all its water. Venus, as they say, from what they presume based on studying it, they had the Russians dropped.
You can melt lead on the surface of Venus. That's how hot it is.
Yeah.
So is there some correlation that they think that Venus was like Earth?
It's exactly like
the presumption there was a Venus.
A presumption.
But the first, well, it's based on
It's
based on scientific.
Proven by whom?
No, nobody was there. Nobody was there.
Proven by people like Alec, by Lawrence Krauss. People noted physicists that can prove and can repeat. And they can verify, and these are the people, and this is why I asked the questions. What I wanted to get back to you was, let's say now we've agreed that the climate is changing.
The climate is definitely changing.
Now, what would happen if a lobbyist walks up to you, puts his arm on your shoulder, and says, "You know what? I got $50,000 that says the climate's not changing." What are you going to do?
Am I Dan Carter or Chris Murphy or Senator Blumenthal or Elizabeth Esty? That's my point.
When somebody asks you to sell out against proven fact.
Okay,
do you look them in the eye and spit in their face, or do you say? But because that's what I would do.
Well, okay,
I mean, if I was in your shoes,
you want to say? You want to know my answer? Okay, number one, I don't sell out. Number two, I can't sell out. There's no way to buy me. There's no mechanism that a lobbyist can give me money for something in the state. There's no mechanism for that. Period. Dot. I mean, we earn a campaign financing from the public.
But when these lobbyists approach
I'll tell you what happens in real life.
Okay, good.
I mean, I get lobbyists approaching me at the Capitol for all kinds of things, and I don't care what side they're on. I listen because what I have found in my experience is that there's always two sides to every story, and the truth is usually in the middle. And it takes good people to go up there and be independent thinkers and think about it and really give it its due and then make the best call. Because I'll tell you what, I can tell you, I see where you're coming from and what you're thinking of with the lobbyists, and I don't think all lobbyists are like that. I mean, I don't think it's as corrupt and a horrible a system as some people think. Do I think there's corruption in it? Definitely. And I think we should stamp it out. In Connecticut, I think we're doing an okay job about it. I think I'd like to see the system a little different. I mean, I think, like I said, I think every contribution should come from individuals only. No PACs, no lobbying, no corporate anything. Not even the state. I don't think the state should be involved in providing tax dollars.
But when you see 85% of the constituents that want, like, let's take the guns for example.
Okay.
For example, 85% of the people said, we don't want guns. And I'll never forget, Cruz, Senator Cruz comes on TV and he goes, I'm against the idea of have everybody having guns, and he says, I'm against it. But when it comes to voting, how did he vote? And when 85% of the people agree on one thing, and 13% of them are the actual people that vote. You got to say to these, I don't know how you don't grab
you got a great question. You got a great question. Okay, so number one, when these things come across, okay, and I'll give you the Newtown example and what happened with guns or anything, death penalty, any controversial vote. Any controversial vote, when things start happening, you start getting an outcry of people. And you get both sides coming to you with statistics, all kinds of statistics, I get people coming to me and saying 90% of people want to get rid of guns, or 90% of people want to get rid of the death penalty. And on the other hand, I get 90% of the people want to keep the death penalty, or 90%, and I tell you, when you look at all these polls, it isn't easy. And I do listen to my constituents the most. And I'm a little OCD about that in the sense that I can show you the majority of emails I got for that time. I can tell you which ones came from outside of my district, which ones came inside my district. I even went and compared them to people locally and looked at the numbers in my district to see how many were for and against. I'll tell you this, out of thousands of emails, I probably had 150 that were people in my voting district.
Wow. Isn't that something?
Right?
And they were split. And that was the hardest part of this because people elect you for your judgment, I think. You go there and when they're not in your shoes, they're expecting, okay, this guy's going to generally do this or that. Mm-hmm. But when the controversial issues come up, I can't forget that I'm a representative. So I'm not beholden to lobbyists, I'm not beholden to anybody but the people who vote me in. And honestly, I try to listen to both sides. I try to find out which is the right data. Because it's not easy. And the more controversial the issue, the more you have people coming to you, putting their arm around you and saying, now they don't say I have $50,000.
Yeah, but I mean, what do you like? If somebody,
I want to finish up. I want to hold on there because I want to finish up my little blurb about the Cosmos series.
Okay.
And Earth and Venus. And Venus and Earth essentially have the same percentage of carbon dioxide.
You're going to talk about Mars?
Within the planet.
Mars,
they got about the same amount of carbon dioxide, both of them. But Venus is in the atmosphere. It blocks, sunlight comes in and it blocks it from going back out, which is why the temperatures are high. Earth, on the other hand, carbon dioxide is almost exclusively in the calcium, the coral reefs and things like that. The White Cliffs of Dover, good example. And in the water. And that's why Earth has this small amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. You need to have some. But what's happened since industrialization, they've only been able to measure carbon dioxide on Earth in the atmosphere since about 1950s. A guy figured out how to do it. Some scientists.
We've been able to measure it. We've been able to measure it 800,000 years. We drill down and take ice.
I'm talking about
core
having
samples.
measurements of how much is in the atmosphere now. And since 1950, we've been able to measure that, and it has gone up appreciably. It's going up at a rapid rate. That rate is accelerating, and there is a threshold at which the polar ice caps will melt. And I know we hear all this stuff.
We've already gone through the threshold.
I know we always there's always somebody out there that says the ice caps are getting bigger, and it's all kinds of, as you say, statistical evidence to support anything you want to support.
Yeah, but
you can find something. If you work backwards, and this is the big problem with people that aren't scientific, is if you're not scientific, you have a conclusion, and then you work backwards from that conclusion to find factoids to back your conclusion. Whereas what science does, and the way science is supposed to operate, is you start with a blank slate. You don't have any conclusions. You take evidence, you measure it, and then eventually you arrive at the conclusion. And of course the conclusion is yes, we have a serious problem.
I'll tell you my concern. Here's my concern about science.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I'm from Ohio. And in Ohio, when there's something out there like it's a scientific theory, if it's a theory, it's an opinion.
Everything starts as a theory.
Now, they might be based on some really great scientific evidence. It might have but in the big scheme of things, there are some theories that have been proven beyond doubt, but there are some still that many are theories based on very smart people, and maybe someday we'll prove them. Growing up, I remember 1974, 75, somewhere in there, being scared to death from Time magazine that we had a global ice age coming. You remember that? And it was fluorocarbons, and it was greenhouse gases, and it was ozone, and we've always had something like that. And to be honest, I'm not a stupid guy. I did well in school, but I don't have. I get science from both sides, and everybody says their science is true. Now, meanwhile, I will say yes, the climate's changing. Is it man-made? I still don't know. Let me finish one thing.
Well, Rich and I both.
Here's a caveat because this is important.
That we do know.
Yeah, the important thing is that I do believe in making common sense decisions about the crap we put in our air.
Right.
I'm not saying that. No, we should. But I'm saying even all the talk about climate change, there's still so many parts of it people don't know.
See, that's where you're wrong, and that's where you're completely wrong because the science is settled.
No, it's not.
The science is settled.
How?
Without a doubt. And let me tell you one thing. The only thing that will unsettle the science is if you can prove it differently. 97.3% of the climate scientists publishing peer-reviewed studies unquestionably
I would love to see.
agree.
I would love to see where 93% agree because
no,
the
97.
point is,
97.
Okay,
well,
that's what I'm saying.
What they did was
there are a lot of scientists who don't agree.
Well, Fox doesn't bring on climate science.
Now let me just finish it.
Well, just
what
quick,
they did was
real quick.
They took the.
Can't believe I'm in a global warming debate.
No, they took what they did was they took all the science articles that were published under the heading of global warming or climate change. They Nextel'd them so they could pick up all the thing on the computer. They read all the studies. Out of all the climate scientists that posted an opinion, 97% of them agreed that global warming is happening and it's real. Now that still leaves 3%.
Okay, but and that may be statistically right on the marking that they're saying global warming is real, but that's a far cry from what people are saying is the cause or what is, what I'm saying?
The cause is simple.
No, is it?
The cause is we're putting carbon in the air. We're putting carbon dioxide in the air. We're putting it in the air at an unprecedented rate.
And just
every
a quick
action has an equal.
There is a difference between carbon dioxide, which comes out of our mouths, and carbon dioxide
that comes out of cows.
That comes out of or cows, derrieres, or our derrieres. There's a difference between that and carbon dioxide, which comes from factory smoke.
Listen. I really respect where you're coming from, Rich, and believe me, I get people who want to talk about global warming and talk about the issues. But you know what? At the end of the day, what is going to be common sense approach to this, especially in Connecticut, is going to be doing things that make sense about how we control pollution, how we put stuff in the air, looking at our environmental policy. I don't have time to worry about whether. Listen, scientists can argue about global warming all they want.
There's no
and that's
argument anymore.
There is an argument, and I'm not. There is, but I can sit here and piss around all day saying there's an argument.
Back to 3%.
I want to make an important point here. Fox, Fox doesn't bring climate scientists on their show. They bring on climate studiers of climate. They have other titles, not actually real PhDs. Yeah. That actually have backgrounds and study it. They have people that whose titles sound sort of official, but in fact they're not really.
Yeah, let me settle this for Clint.
Okay.
Your kid's sick. He doesn't look good. It's obvious he's got a fever. You took his temperature. He's running a fever. You're saying, damn it, something's wrong. You convene a bunch of doctors. 97% of the doctors say, hey, your kid's deathly sick. Get his ass in the hospital. We can cure. We can save him. Would you go and say, well, let me get another opinion? Because there's still 3% of the doctors that might be able to say he's all right. The science is settled.
Did I talk to 97% of those doctors myself?
Well,
and did I talk to them myself, or am I relying on some poll and a specific question about?
You're relying on research. Like the latest
research?
The IPCC report was written by 200 lead authors.
And there were authors who have come back and said they didn't agree with their own findings at this point.
You know what?
So
I'm
not saying you're wrong.
But the thing is, you're going to stick with the 0.3%. You're going to find people that believe that Santa Claus is real.
Yeah, but I appreciate where you're coming from.
Are you going to say that they have the right to their opinion?
Where I am as a representative, I'm supposed to look at both sides.
No, you don't.
I am.
No.
I do not look at the one crowd and say you're 100% right. I think we're not going to agree today.
We're talking about gravity. Now
bad example. Bad example.
Anything. What's more certain or less certain? Now, when I go to drop this, we're pretty sure it's going to fall. But there is an outside chance it could go up.
You making a comparison that global warming has the same scientific relevance as gravity makes no sense at all to me.
Exactly. It
makes no sense. It's not proven.
It's over.
There are plenty of people who are deciding.
Dan, there's been
I'm done.
IPCC.
I have a question.
Whoa,
Emily has a question.
You mentioned before that you're a representative,
right?
At the end of the day, so when you receive all these emails from your people in
my district,
yep. Thanks. Does that mean that what if the people want something that you don't necessarily believe, you go for what you think you represent?
Well, okay, so you bring up a good example. So. Right. The only time I get really an influx of emails, one of a couple things. If there's a really controversial issue on the table, obviously more people start coming out and saying for or against from the district. Right. I do get a really good sense of what the district is at that point. Sometimes when there's a specific issue that would affect an industry or something like that, I get an outpouring of emails from people in that industry or some people, pros and cons.
Right.
Those you have to, I think, look at the facts a little more and consider, what everybody's agenda is on both sides, and then you make the best possible call, I think, in the vote. It's a little different. It's not like you just look at an email and go, oh, well, I'm going to vote for that because I got an email. It's, we get people who are very, very, well-connected, organized groups who might come out and be, going after a particular issue.
So there's some internal forces within you and some external forces from other people, some, as you say, some within the district and some folks that are just, blast emailing, blast faxing.
Give an example. When
all over the world to try to make a point.
In the legislature, you play referee a lot. A good example would be, let's say the people who are athletic trainers one year wanted to expand their scope of practice to take care of more what the physical therapists would do. Or the occupation. So there's constantly this thing that goes around. So now you've got all the physical therapists and the occupational trainers or athletic trainers all emailing you on behalf of their issue. Or this year was the nurse practitioner issue. So
that was a big issue.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So nurse practitioners, doctors, people from the medical community, all would weigh in. And I think that's where you kind of really have to look at the big picture and talk to all the individuals. And we also have the benefit in the legislature of reading all the testimony at the public hearings. So, for instance, I was not on public health, so I wasn't in that public hearing.
Right.
But all the testimony is scanned in and is available from my laptop. So that's what I mean. You really got to see where people think. And to where we were going earlier, I really respect where you're coming from and the spirit of it and how much passion you have, because both sides have that. And
but there's not two sides, and so that's what I'm trying to explain to you.
I understand. Well, I mean, by default, there is.
You can talk until you're blue in the face. There's no Santa Claus. There just ain't. And the thing, and just like global warming is settling, and the thing is, I shouldn't open it back up. No, you being able to represent the people,
right?
And if I were you, I'd be standing on that podium in front of everybody up in Hartford, and I'd be saying, "Listen, guys, stop the bullshit. Our kids are depending on the decisions that we make here."
I agree with that.
You do? Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I agree with
still,
making comments.
You haven't embraced the idea.
You didn't listen. You don't have to embrace that side of the idea to know that we have to make common sense decisions about our environment. Listen,
that's right. I have just
as many people in my district, Rich, who do not agree with the stand that you have. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people in my district who look at global warming and go, yeah, well, I agree the climate is changing in one way or the other, but it's probably natural. It's probably
Right.
I'm saying there's people on both sides of the issue. There are people who look at the science and go, you know what, the jury's still out. I'm telling you, if I'm representing both sides, I'm listening to both sides, and the common sense decision I need to make is be a good steward of the environment in the state. And
like Lawrence Krauss says, when it comes to science, there's always two opinions, and one side is always wrong. And it's that simple.
Okay.
And so the thing is, we can see
Sure, it's not really, it's not philosophy, it's science. It's a difference.
Well, that's it. I mean, and thermometers don't lie. Satellites always tell the truth. And when you see the hockey stick, and speaking of ways to prove yourself, when Michael Mann gets done with Mark Stein and the National Review, he's going to end up owning the National Review because of the way they libeled him when it came to climate change. They equated him to being like Jerry Sandusky with the facts and figures.
I hope when it comes out that the truth prevails.
It will, because the science is settled.
And with that,
let's go right to the next show. I'm on a roll here.
This has been Progressive Soup. David Stevenson, co-host Emily Volpintesta, Dan Carter, and Rich Frascone from Frascone. Okay.
Dan,
we're going to come back and be on the show.
I appreciate it.
And we'll let you guys.
You're wrong.
No, but it gets to the point where I can't.